freedom is not free. Believe me, it's not free. Because you pay dearly for freedom.
Being 17 and being from a small town, I looked at that ship and I said, holy Toledo, how am I ever going to learn how to get around on that ship? And that's about what it was. It was awesome.
With more than 27,000 tons of steel and a crew of 3,000, the aircraft carrier of World War II stands tall in naval history. Bustling shipyards could build one in just 18 months and launch 17 Essex-class carriers during the war, embarking across treacherous waters, facing dangers above and below the sea. They carried the power of combat aircraft wherever the fight took them, all for our freedom.
What just shakes me is the size of this ship. When I come over, this is ridiculous. My God, I can't find the end of the ship. Come on. Really, it's just astounding.
I looked at this thing, I said, this thing is going to sink the first time we go out. It's so big and so heavy. I'm sure the thing's going to sink.
In 1933, the Navy launched its first designed aircraft carrier, the USS Ranger. Later versions provided more speed and quickly became the backbone of America's naval fleets.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
The Pacific Fleet took a devastating blow that fateful day. As then Vice Admiral Halsey described it, by the grace of God, no carriers were at Pearl Harbor. This good fortune thrust carriers into the forefront for ever-changing battle tactics at sea. Aircraft launched by carriers now brought the fight to distant enemy fleets. This new tactic, starting with the Battle of Coral Sea, led to Midway, where the USS Yorktown CV-5 was lost, but later replaced by the newly christened USS Yorktown CV-10.
Well, I know it's the best fighting ship there is. We would call it, I don't know whether you know, it's called a fighting lady. And why we were the fighting lady? Because we'd always take the lead. There, all the battles of the world, we'd always take the lead and be the last one out of there.
Courageous young crewmen and pilots called these carriers home. With youthful exuberance and innocence, they could not know what awaited them, or how they would respond to intense battles, let alone the growing threat of kamikaze pilots, a new tactic of war so brutal it was terrifying to imagine. For sailors and soldiers alike, war is hell on earth.
The guns, you couldn't hear anything because the guns were all shooting. Then the smoke came. You couldn't see anything for the smoke. But everybody was, you didn't hear yelling, screaming, or hollering like that because everybody had their job.
I really didn't get scared until it was all over. You know, with all the explosions and the 50 caliber going off, you could hear them zinging by your head.
Oh, those kamikazes, they were terrible. That scared the living daylights out of you. You know, because they'd come straight in, you didn't know whether they were going to hit, whether they were going to hit you, or was going to go forward, half, where.
never shot at an airplane and thought of it as having a man in it. I never thought I was shooting at a man. I was shooting at another airplane that wanted to shoot at me.
People just don't understand how bodies can be massacred.
And the pilot's intercom was coming over our PA system, and we could hear all the messages they were sending back to the ships. And they were saying to tell their mother and their wives and their children goodbye, and that they love them. And all of a sudden, it would go silent, and sometimes it would go silent right in the middle of a sentence, and that was terrible to listen to.
For many brave pilots, their mission ended while engaged in fierce battle, depriving them safe return to their beloved carrier.
We lost a lot of pilots. They were all not much older than me, 18, 19, 20 years old. I love my pilots. I love their camaraderie, their patriotism, and they're willing to fight.
You get a medal picture, the same when we buried at sea, when you're sliding somebody off that board, you see that too. Those are some of the things that occur when war's going on or you're out in a ship. It happens fast.
We never had any knowledge of any of them saying, I'm not going to go out today, or I'm not going to go out tomorrow. We had none of them. They were willing to go, not knowing when they'd come back. And they were good people. Very good. They won the war for us. I admire every one of them.
I got hit on a dive bomb attack with a 40 millimeter. And I was flying a Hellcat night fighter, and a 40 millimeter put a hole in my airplane, and the tin started coming off the wing, and I had to come out of the dive. If that had hit anywhere else on that wing, why, it would have fallen off and I'd have been in Japan in one way or another. But it didn't, so that was kind of scary because I didn't want to go to Japan.
It's pretty black out there. You have to believe your instruments. Sometimes hard to do. You know, the old adage, fly by the seat of your pants. The seat of your pants, it'll stay in a turn and it'll feel like you're straight up. And you just got to believe the instruments.
Number one is to do what they told me to do, and number two was to stay alive. It was very basic. We all want to get out of it.
Armed with guns to fight off enemy planes, the carrier's greatest threat came from what it could not see: submarines. To avoid detection, these mighty ships sailed with no lights, cloaked in the darkness of night. The Battle of the Philippine Sea tested this tactic, offering a chance to strike the Japanese fleet just beyond range.
They turned us in the wind and launched everything that we had. All the carriers did. I bet there was 1,000 planes up there flying on, and they took off for the fleet. And of course we turned and we followed them and tried to close as much gap as we could.
Well, the trouble thing about that, they were all running out of gas. Most of them were running out of gas. The planes were being lost because they couldn't find the task force.
Actually, we had been blacked out, and you didn't know where the ships were. They were all on radar for each other, so they didn't bump into one another. But all the lights were out all the time, and if anybody ever came out on the flight deck up there with a cigarette, he stood a good chance of being shot at by another boat.
War challenges commanders to lead boldly, where split seconds can mean the difference between life and death. Running on fumes, pilots returning in the dead of night struggled to find their carriers. Ralph Jennings, the Yorktown's commander, did not hesitate to follow Vice Admiral Mitcher's orders to his fleet. Turn on the lights.
But all of a sudden, I was standing out on the deck, and it was all black, and the word came on, light the ships. And with that, the whole horizon just turned bright.
We went from total darkness, you couldn't see your hand in front of you, to it looked like Broadway. Every ship, every light, every ship in that whole task force turned on their lights, and man, it was bright as Broadway out there. I mean, it looked like another world out there. And the pilots could see it from 50 miles away, and they said, there they are. And they started coming there and landing, and we saved Mitchell saved a lot of pilots' lives by turning on all the lights.
Every landing on a carrier is an exciting thing.
Being on an aircraft carrier, there's no other place to land, and you better be right. The ship was over here, and you were coming down and making a rounded turn into it to roll out and land, and you just cut the throttle and drop it in. Returning to the ship was a safe haven. You felt doggone good when those wheels hit the deck, and it couldn't have felt better.
Boys became men and had to, in their own way, overcome any fears so the mission could be accomplished.
I think if you're not afraid, you're gonna die. Everybody has a fear, and when somebody's on your tail shooting at you and you see the tracers flying by, you get a cold sweat. And I think you'd call that fear. Everybody thinks he's forever, you know, and that gets you through it out there. I don't think we ever individually thought about dying.
You don't think about it. You really don't. You know you're out there to do a job, and some of the guys didn't make it. It's just that simple.
But of all the crew, it was the ship itself, a safe haven, a mother that guided these sailors and brought them home.
I don't think that anybody ever didn't depend on their mother, and I think that's the way you look at the fighting lady as sort of a mother. You come to with your troubles, or you feel safe when you're there.
Well, I know it's the best fighting ship there is.
This ship went to war to save our country, and I love this old ship. We feel like it's our ship. It belongs to the crew.
She's a mighty fighting ship. She's a beautiful ship. And then I take pride in that I served on her.
I was always proud to have been on this great ship. I sailed over 375,000 miles on her, because you never stop moving. The Yorktown is the United States of America, for me. Like I say, when I see her, my heart just glows.
What for the carrier you would never won war?
Since that remarkable service in World War II, the great carriers, their crews, and aviators have served around the world. Korea, Vietnam, and most recently, the Persian Gulf. Their role has not changed. Get fighter and other aircraft to anywhere around the world. While today's carriers dwarf the early ships before them, and the aircraft are technological marvels, the crews and pilots possess the same spirit as those young men who made history stepping aboard carriers like the USS Yorktown, a ship whose every deck echoes with the memories of men who sacrificed and persevered while securing our freedom.
You have to remember what all of us give, not me, but the people that give their lives so we have democracy in the world.
If only one little wish that I wish comes true, I know that the